Hello, everybody. Nick Yor here, and welcome into a very special edition of the Prep Zone. Today, we are joined by South Lake's head football coach, Kevin Healy, for a special phone interview to talk about his team. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We're going to get right into it. You guys just had a big 39-15 road win over Marshall last week in the first round of the playoffs. What were some of the things you liked from your team and maybe some things you'd like to see cleaned up moving forward?
First of all, we were happy to just not get rained on for the first time in a few weeks. That was always nice. But from our team, from that standpoint, I think there are a lot of young guys on the team. So even though we've been kind of a regular playoff contender, I think a lot of the younger kids were leaning on that was their first taste of being a real kind of key cog in it, and that they weren't the lights weren't too big for them on the stage, which was nice to see.
Yeah, so how do you kind of build on that momentum for these younger guys moving into probably an even bigger, more lights will be on you in the second round of the playoffs, and obviously you have a pretty big opponent?
Yeah, I think I like where we're at in terms of our team and our mentality. I think obviously we have Westfield, and this will be 4 years in a row we get them in the playoffs, and rightfully so. You got to go through the best to get where you want to go in the playoffs. And they've earned that right to call themselves that based on their performance. But I think we got a lot of young kids who are kind of undaunted by that. Maybe just out of the fact that they just out of sheer ignorance they weren't around for it. They haven't been on the team for some of our defeats prior to that. So I think they're a lot of our young guys are taking kind of a fresh perspective into this, which is nice and kind of a clean slate.
Yeah, it's a great point. We're going to be right back here with Coach Kevin Healy. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back and finish this phone interview with South Lake's head coach, Kevin Healy.
Good evening, lacrosse fans, and welcome to Westfield High School.
We have a great game in store for you today. The first time in the history of the Capital Classic that girls high school basketball players, the finest in the country, will be taking the court.
Hey, everybody. Nick Yor here, and welcome back into a very special edition of the Prep Zone. We are joined by South Lake's head football coach, Kevin Healy. And, Coach, we'll get right back into it. You guys had both of your losses pretty early on in the season and now have won 6 straight. What do you think has been the biggest key to this recent success throughout the regular season?
I think there's been a lot of maturation. Again, I think I stressed earlier, we're leaning on a lot of sophomores, a few guys who are kind of first-year varsity contributors. I think finding your way on a varsity football field is something that you can prepare for in August, but you really can't get a handle on it until you go out there and do it. So I think we've grown a lot just from a person-by-person, player-by-player standpoint in terms of getting used to the physicality. And I think we had to kind of reinvent ourselves, our identity for who we were. I think we had our senior class leave last year was a lot of dudes who were 3-year starters, in some cases 4-year starters, that kind of the team identity was wrapped up in. I think it took us a couple of weeks to kind of figure out who we were and who was going to lead and who was going to kind of take the keys from those seniors who left last year, because they left a pretty big hole, and I think that was us figuring that out.
Yeah, it's a great point. A lot of great seasons recently, multiple playoff appearances in each of those seasons. So how proud of that was you and your program that you're able to keep that up this year? Another great season, 9-2, with so many key departures in such a young team, like you said.
It was important for us to make sure that we didn't have any kind of a dip in our expectations and in our quality and our standards. Obviously we had a head coaching change before the season started, but I told the kids before the season, it's more than once you build a culture, and we've built a pretty strong culture here. That culture becomes a lot bigger than just one person or a couple players or a couple graduating seniors. It really becomes more about kind of the village around it, and I think we've done a really good job. As I tip my hat to my staff, and then a lot of our players are 4-year guys who've been in the program of just kind of continuing to beat the drum of what we've done, and what we do is generally successful, and the kids buy into it. And we have a lot of buy-in from them, so it's really a lot about kind of all the people around making sure the culture doesn't change.
Yeah, it's another great point. I mean, it's 9-2. You can't argue with that type of success, especially with such a young team. So this was your first year taking over as head coach for South Lakes. Can you just kind of describe what it's been like in year one for you?
I think, I forget which coach it was, told me back in September or August. I think it was described as trying to drink out of a fire hose. It was pretty crazy to start with, especially with the timing. Just trying to get my head around all the things that as an assistant coach or as a coordinator, you get the players are really not dealing with. A lot of the administrative side of things, a lot of the kind of coordinating and organizing an entire program. That was a little bit foreign to me. I'd seen it done from afar, and I had a really good role model in Coach Taylor, who I watched do it for a few years. But there's a difference between watching and doing. And I think some patience was needed. My staff kind of suffered through some rookie head coaching mistakes in the beginning, but I think we've gotten our feet under us nicely. It was something that got me out of my comfort zone. I've been a coordinator for just 3 years, and head coach is a whole different animal in terms of challenges, and I've really liked doing that.
Yeah, it certainly is. I saw you guys play Centerville earlier this year, and then last week looked like a completely different team. So that's just kudos to your coaching staff and what you've been able to do there. And so what you mentioned Coach Taylor, a big mentor. I read that he was a very huge mentor for you earlier in your career. So what do you think coaching under him made you most prepared to take over as head coach for this team?
I just remember watching him deal with everything from players, to parents, to administrators, to how you prepared for a practice, to how you prepared for a game, to how you managed expectations as the season went on, and when to kind of push your foot on the gas and when to let up a little bit in terms of pushing kids. It was a kind of an all-inclusive learning experience that was really important for me to be able to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I know it's just your first year at South Lakes, but what are you really looking to build there, and why do you believe that South Lakes is a place you can have great success at?
I think we built something pretty special here in terms of a culture, in terms of making sure that we have great community support around us, and then we have a lot of coaches in the building. I think we're starting to build a little bit of a tradition, which we didn't have when we came here in terms of tradition of success, and. We like our kids here, to be honest. We have an interesting mix of kids from different backgrounds, and football's a cool way to get all those guys to come together and kind of unify as one.
Yeah, certainly a lot of good athletes in that area. I remember playing against South Lakes in football and basketball back in the day. So we'll just get you out of here on this one. Obviously, the big game coming up versus Westfield this weekend. Don't want to give away too much of your strategy or game plan, but what do you think will be a big key for your team in having success against this tough Bulldogs team?
I think a big key is not panicking when they punch us in the mouth. They're going to do it. They're going to punch us in the mouth. They're a 3-time defending state championship team for a reason. I think if we take that first punch and we take it in stride and we know it was coming and we expect it, then I think we'll be okay and we'll hang in battle. And I have confidence in our kids that they'll do that. Special teams is always a big deal with them in terms of taking a seemingly forgotten part of the game and turning it into big momentum swings. So hopefully we'll be prepared for that. And we're just going to leave it all out there. It's always a fun time to play at their house. It's always packed, and our kids aren't going to shrink from the light.
Yeah, it's a great point, especially with a young team, and this South Lakes team certainly knows how to win on the road. Just got a big road win at Marshall. So we just want to thank you, Coach, one more time for joining us on the Prep Zone. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you to Coach Kevin Healy from South Lakes High School. Remember, they have a big game at Westfield this Friday, so make sure to check that one out. South Lakes versus Westfield should be a great game. Remember to check us out at dmvstream.com for all the latest on the DMV high school football and all that good stuff.
dmvstream.com, the Mid-Atlantic's leader in sports video, broadcasting, and live streaming. Contact us today to learn more about our services and streaming packages. Visit us on the web at dmvstream.com. That's dmvstream.com.